Sex, life, and tech. If you're 21 or 101, we love them all. Welcome to Age Blind with Nancy AF.
Hey, it's Nancy Shenker. Welcome back to Age Blind. And this is a bittersweet episode because it's the last one in my series called The Hot Summer. And yes, it's been a very hot summer. We're going on, I don't even know how many days in Arizona of above 110 degrees. But it's a hot summer because also people have fun, people cut loose, people get naked. They do all the things you do over the summer, whether you're 19 or 109, because we are age blind here. And today we have a very, very special guest to close out the hot summer. And it's a social worker named Janet Bayramyan, and she is going to talk about how to cure or how to beat the end of summer slump, which some of you may already be feeling. I know in Arizona, kids have already started going back to school. So for all intents and purposes, the summer is over here, but in many parts of the country, it's not. So we're going to give you tips as an adult of how to really beat those end of summer blues. So first, I would love to hear a little bit more about your background and what your practice consists of and why you were interested in talking about this topic.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. So I'm Janet Bayramian. I'm a licensed therapist. I'm located in Los Angeles, so Southern California. We have really nice summers here as well. And in my practice, I work with clients of all ages, primarily adults right now. And a lot of my clients have struggled with depression, anxiety, a lot of clients with trauma history as well. So I work with clients on really working through a lot of that and basically helping them live more authentically and creating the lives that they want to live.
Very cool. Very cool. And, very often, and I don't need to tell you this because you're a therapist, is that, sometimes people have micro traumas in their youth and, they were bullied in school or they never felt good enough or they had forced relationships with their parents. And those things stay with us up through adulthood. So very often how we feel at the end of the summer could actually relate to how we viewed the summer throughout our lives. So what are some of the reasons why people do get sad or sometimes anxious at the end of the summer months?
Well, I feel like the summer really is an opportunity, I think, for kids and for families to not, I guess, work as hard, right? Like kids are out of school, families, they might go on vacation to really beautiful places, have a break. So I think when the end of summer starts to roll around, it's like that reality sinks in that it's back to the grind of work or back to the grind of school. And also our sunlight is going to shorten very, very soon. So I think people are also impacted by when we have our time changes. There's also something called seasonal affective disorder where it is a true mood and chemical shift that
I was going
happens.
to ask you about that because I've read a lot about SAD and I,
Mhm.
was just wondering, is it a real thing? I mean, I find that since I moved to the West Coast 8 years ago, I have different kinds of anxiety and stuff, but the fact that it's sunny 360 days out of the year definitely has an impact on mood and attitude and energy level.
Yeah. It is absolutely a real thing. It is a diagnosis that some people do clinically have where there is a significant shift in mood or just even a significant shift in just how you function in your day to day when there's less light throughout the day, or maybe you live in an area where there's a lot of rain, maybe a lot of snow. So it can be very, very cold and challenging. And that absolutely can impact how we feel and our nervous system. So I think I agree with you. I'm in a place in Los Angeles where it is sunny for the most part throughout the year. So I personally too could not imagine living in an area where it's just rainy, very frequently and you're not getting as much sunlight.
Or it gets dark at 5 o'clock at night, before
Mhm.
you're even out of work. I was also
Yeah.
just reminiscing. I mean, obviously my kids are grown and flown now, but I remember when I was working full time and I was a mom, back to school season was also fraught with all this stress to make sure that the kids had everything that they needed to get
Yes.
ready for back to school. And There's always those times when the kid comes home the first week of school and says, "Oh, I need this kind of calculator."
Mhm.
Thank goodness for Amazon. In the old days, you were just kind of screwed if you didn't have something you needed and couldn't get
Absolutely.
it the next day. Yeah.
Absolutely. Very true. A lot of responsibility for parents too.
Yeah, yeah. So what are we've gone through some of the causes. What are some of the simple things that we could do? I mean, obviously not everybody could pick up and move to a place like LA or Arizona as soon as the first frost hits. So what can we do to fight the post-summer blues?
So, yeah, if we're talking about specifically the seasonal affective disorder, really it's going to be important to create more light in your day to day. So, that might mean actually having like a light, a specific lamp that you use in your day to day to kind of create that feeling that you are getting more almost like a fake sunshine if you think about it that way. That is actually one of the tools that I recommend that a lot of physicians even talk about is really important to have if you are someone that struggles with seasonal affective disorder. The other thing that I would want to point out to do your best on, and I know it's hard when kids go back to school, but it is important to have something to look forward to even in, let's say, the fall or winter months when, it's kind of a different energy from summer. It's so important to have something, whether it's an activity that you really like doing in the fall or just even something with your family that maybe helps you reminisce about that summertime. Having something to look forward to is also really, really important. I think the other thing that I think is important to also consider, in some of the like cooler months also is very much be real with yourself, right? So sometimes we might push away our feelings. Sometimes we might say that, you know, we're fine when we're really not. And so if that is your situation, I do think it's important to be true to what you're noticing and maybe even consider speaking with a therapist or somebody to actually help you through, some of those more difficult months.
Yeah, and actually that was going to be one of my questions. So this is a really good segue is at what point do you know that you need to get outside help? That talking to friends and family may not be the cure all. I mean, right in this day and age, therapy is so easy to find. I'm not saying qualified therapy is always easy to find,
Right.
but there still is a little bit of a stigma. I mean, I come from New York where you're almost an outlier if you didn't have a therapist in New York.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
living here, a lot of people are from the Midwest. And you say, "Oh, I was talking to my therapist about blah, blah, blah." They're like, "Oh, you have a therapist?" And so I do think a little bit of that still does exist. But
Hmm.
when is that tipping point when you say, this is not just a bad mood, this is something that I need a professional to help me through?
Right. Well, really, it's when I would say your day to day functioning declines, when it's hard to maintain your responsibilities at work, your responsibilities at school, or it's difficult to be present in your family or present with your kids if you're a parent. So when you notice just your day to day tasks begin to decline, right? That's an important indicator that maybe getting some more professional help is needed. I would also say, like for me too, I know LA is not quite like, those colder places, but I can feel some of the like shift in mood start to happen in the winter months. But for me, I can kind of get myself out of it because I can say to myself, this is temporary. This is going to be just for the next few months. It'll be fine. Yeah, it's annoying. It gets dark pretty soon, but I can still get on with my day. I can still have things to look forward to in the winter months. So if that's your mindset, you will probably be fine and you will probably be able to make that shift, right? But if again, these colder months feel like the end of the world and like I just cannot get through it, then it would be important to seek out some more professional support.
Yeah, and you hit on something that I think is really, really important to our viewers and listeners is finding those little things that do bring you joy. I have a list that I made that I keep refreshing and revising called 100 Things That Make Me Happy. And the exercise itself of coming up with 100 things was
Mhm.
not easy to do. And some of
Mhm.
them are little things like, taking a great book out of the library or starting a craft project or,
Mhm.
baking. Like little
Mhm.
things that don't necessarily cost a lot of money, but can bring you joy, or people in
Right.
your circle that you always get off the phone with them smiling unless you're in a really deep, deep slump. So,
Right.
we all should have that 100 list at the ready
Right.
so that,
Right.
or plan a staycation. Not every escape needs to be super costly. Um,
Absolutely.
as I've
Absolutely.
discovered. So yeah, those are some really, really great tips on how to beat the post-summer blues. And I had a therapist on as a guest this morning who just talked about like self-regulating and kind of knowing when you feel like almost like a pot of water boiling, when you feel yourself getting frustrated or angry or upset, of like just taking it down a notch, which I do think gets much easier as you get older and you have that perspective on the passage of time.
Absolutely.
Still working on it at 69, but way
Yeah.
better than I was even at 59.
Amazing.
So enough about me. What is the best way for people to get a hold of you if they're interested in learning more? Or I assume you do remote appointments now, like most therapists do. What is the best way to reach you?
Yeah. So yes, I do offer virtual appointments as well as in person here in LA. So the best way to reach me is via my website, roadtowellness.co, or I'm also on social media giving also some tips on different mental health topics. So you can also find me on Instagram at therapy with Janet B. So those are the best ways to reach out to me.
That's great. And it's terrific that you really are making yourself available via social media. Because I know for a long time, therapists, kind of thought that that was, being too marketing to
Mhm.
have a public persona. But I think, with the mental health crisis in our country, making solutions so readily available to people is more important than ever before. So, big
Yeah.
advocate of seeking out help when you hit the wall, as it were.
Absolutely. And I think it's really powerful to see so many therapists on social media because, like you were saying, in New York and places here like LA, it's just so common to say, I spoke to my therapist about it. Right. But I think with social media, having more dialogue around different mental health topics, I also hope that it kind of breaks some of that stigma in some other parts of the country where maybe therapy isn't as celebrated as it is in other areas.
Exactly. And if you, don't jive with one therapist, then, just keep looking because that relationship is super important and finding somebody you vibe with is really key,
Totally. Absolutely.
which I think I hear that sometimes from my friends. They'll say, well, they just play back to me what I'm saying. It's like, well, then they're not a great therapist. Like you really need somebody who's going to ask the right questions and prompt you in the right direction.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So even though the summer is over, mental health and taking care of your mental health and your physical health is a 365 pursuit. And again, get over the perception that if you're in therapy, there's something wrong with you. The reality is we're all flawed. As I like to say, Nancy AF, the F stands for fearless, flawed, and many other things. It's not just what people think it stands for. So we're all human, despite the growth in AI. And we all need to help each other get through the tough times, whether it's the end of summer or something more serious. But thank you so much, Janet. So grateful.
Thank
Keep
you.
on listening to Age Blind. We're making a massive change this fall that our episodes are all going to be a mere 20 minutes. So if you listen to a guest or see a guest that you would like to hear more of, just email me at nancyashenker@gmail.com. We're also booking guests for the last quarter of the year. So if you're interested in guesting, please reach out. Again, nancyashenker@gmail.com. Follow me on social media. It's nancyaf _ on Instagram, and nancyaf.com is the website. And remember, in all aspects of your life, focus on what you have in common with other people as opposed to putting them in categories like boomer or Gen Z or millennial or Gen Alpha or Gen whatever. So be age blind, be kind, and peace out.